Welcome to Dance Specific Talks. This podcast is made for us dancers, and our goal here is to inspire dancers from all over the world to become better, both on and off the dance floor. We want to provide you with a platform where we dancers can share and learn from each other. So let me introduce to you your host for this podcast, Teaser, and remember as always, by dancers, for dancers.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite dance podcast, Dance Specific Talks. Today, we are going to interview a world citizen. She doesn't belong to any country. She has traveled all over the world with her passion. We are going to talk with no one else than the hula hoop expert, Lottie. Lottie was very early to go out on YouTube with her street shows. You have seen her in cabarets, at business events, in the circus, but also doing her own performances around the world on the streets. Today we're talking with someone who actually didn't grow up having a specific passion. She's a high school dropout, but still managed to find something to live for. I am so excited for you to hear this interview, and please subscribe to our channel on Spotify, iTunes, and much more. And now, let's get it going. Welcome to this interview, Lottie.
Thank you.
So amazing to have you on. You are currently in Singapore. Tell me what you're going to do in Singapore.
I am about to open the first international circus or show, full stop, in Singapore after the pandemic, right? So in Singapore, like everywhere else in the world, there's been no live shows for 18 months. And I'm opening the first one back up together with a amazing group of artists. The show's called Le Clique. It's a variety show, and we'll have a band, singers, variety acts, circus, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be great.
Wow. This must feel incredible for you to be in that forefront of starting things up again for this culture and art industry. What are you most excited about in this last coming months of this year?
In the last coming months of this year. Well, I mean, right before I came to Singapore, I was actually in London for 5 weeks. So I actually did a season in the West End for, again, opening one of the first circus shows back up. So I had like a really good warm-up run before doing this, which is really, really nice. So now I'm kind of like, feel like I'm on a roll again. And this show will take me to November, right? So actually, by the time I finish in November, I would have done 100 performances on stage already. Like...
Oh,
I know it sounds batshit crazy, doesn't it? Yeah, it was like 70 shows here. We did 35 in London, so it's like more than 100 shows for 2021, which is really more than I could have ever wished for at the beginning of 2021. So I consider myself incredibly lucky.
So when December comes, do you think that you're going to start some kind of Christmas season in another country, or are you going to take vacation?
So I have, I'm doing another show in January in Perth. It's another circus variety show for the Perth Fringe Festival. And that's a show that's one of my passion projects. I was doing that show right before the pandemic hit. Like that's the last show we did, and then the pandemic closed down. So I'm really looking forward to doing that particular show again. And so if we do that in January, and it's an ensemble show, so it's not just like, I'm hula hooping for 5 minutes and thank you, and I'm taking a bow. It's like full on 1 hour acrobatics, like group acts, everybody working together. It's a crew of 6 of us. So when I come home, I'll take a month to like really prepare for that, get myself back into like more acrobatic shape, and get ready again for like hot weather in Australia, and just prepare for that season. That's what it will be. I don't think a Christmas season is really gonna be a thing yet. I don't know. We don't really have that so much in Australia anyway. Christmas season is like a big deal in Europe. You know, in Australia, I think people love Christmas, but it's less of a A, it's really hot. They don't have Santa Claus. Not really, you know. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like Swedish Christmas where it's like the most exciting time of the year. In Australia, they're like, nah, we'll just have a barbecue. We'll have some prawns and some steak, and that's cool, you know.
Wow.
So it'll just be training for me, I reckon, be training.
Yeah. Well, it sounds great. I mean, I feel like I don't even know where to start with you because it's like a very long journey. And at the same time, your love for hula hoop came in not as a child, but as a actual like a 21-year-old. So why don't we just take it back to that little transition? I know you probably said it 100 times, but for the people who don't know you, you weren't a gymnastic, you weren't a dancer, you didn't have any of that in you as a hobby when you grew up, and then at just one day at 21 years old you found the hula hoop. Tell me a little bit about that story.
Yeah, you know, I've told it 100 times, but also it is actually, from obviously for me it's a special story, but also I think it's special because it is really so different from how this path normally goes. Because as you say, usually when somebody goes into circus or any kind of performance art, there is some kind of background, right? Starting with a physical or a theater at least background of some sorts, and then moving into a more specialized direction. And as I didn't have any of that, I didn't really have a lot of confidence when I was growing up. I really kind of had no idea what to do. I didn't feel particularly stimulated physically, intellectually. I kind of was a bit of a problem child, if you know what I mean. Like I just didn't really have anything to really channel my energy into. And it's super weird, but I was working in a soap shop in like Brighton in the United Kingdom. I lived in the UK, and I was working in a soap shop, and we like really randomly, I don't even know why the shop particularly got approached for this, but there's a music DJ who lives in Brighton called Fatboy Slim, quite a famous DJ, and he lives there, and they were doing a music video for him, and the star of the music video was a hula hooper. So they were going to do a hula hoop video in a field in Brighton, and they just needed extras for the video. Then it just needed people who would hula hoop in the background just for this one particular shot, like the last 20 seconds of the video. And they're like, oh, do you fancy coming to do it? And I went, yeah, but I can't hula hoop. And they're like, that's okay, we'll teach you on the day. It's like a day on set, you know, so we'll just teach how to do it. And I was like, okay, this sounds pretty fun. And it was like a really beautiful day in Brighton. And so I went to the South Downs, the hills, and I got given a hula hoop. And I had a go, and I think I actually drop it in the video, which is quite funny. They were like, can you just see if you can spin it on your waist for like 1 minute? And I was like, whoa, 1 minute, that seems like a really big task. Don't know if I can do that. But I did. And I think I actually do drop it in the video, which is very fun. And then, as I was on set playing with this hula hoop, I just really loved it. And then I really like the girl, Angie Mack, who starred in this video. Like she just completely mesmerized me. I've just never seen anyone move like that. She just had hula hoops all over her body. She just moved so beautifully. And I was like, wow, I would love to do that. But at that time, I still didn't actually think I would have whatever it would take to actually do that. And it wasn't until, so I ended up buying a hoop off Angie. I wanted to get my own hoop. And she came to the shop, actually, to the soap shop with a hoop, gave it to me. She's like, £10, Lisa, for my hula hoop. And I was like, whew, it's a lot of money, but I think it's going to be worth it. And she's like, oh, by the way, I got offered this job to perform in this circus in India. It's a traditional circus. It'll be a 6-month contract. You'll live in India, work under a big top and hula hoop. Is that something that you'd like to do? Because I'm not going to do it because it's like £5 a day, or like, you know, like the money was so low. And I was like, that sounds great. And she's like, okay, you're going to have to learn how to hula hoop a little bit better though. And I was like, okay, yeah. So she was very generous, and she gave me a couple of classes, and then I got given the DVD of the video that we made. And then like I had a laptop, very old piece of shit, no internet, nothing. So I had my DVD I could put in my laptop, and I just like learned all the tricks. I just sat there with my laptop. I took my laptop to the park, and I just learned the tricks, learned them over and over again. And I got this job to go to India. So it was like 3 months after I even started hula hooping, I moved to India, joined the circus, started hula hooping for a living. I was terrible, but I was very determined. So, and yeah, that's how I started hula hooping.
Wow. First of all, the move of like, just like, yeah, 6 months it's in a country where I've maybe never been before, and with a circus I don't know, with people I don't know. And I mean, were there any fear, or was it just, I'm ready?
I had loads of fear, but so much fear. Oh my God. I think the first time I actually performed, it was for so many people and press. I think I puked in my mouth, it was terrifying. But also, I think it was at this right point in my life, right? It was at this point where I was like, nah, I'm like 21 years old. I've never studied. I was a high school dropout, actually. So I'd never even really finished school or anything like that. Didn't have anything that I was good at. Didn't have anything that I loved. Just didn't really have anything. I had no direction. And I also didn't really have that thing where I'm like, oh, I must work out what I want to do. It kind of really just fell into my lap. And I went, oh, I'll just run with this and see what happens. So I ran with it to India, and then that happened. And I didn't really ever stop to think about, is this the right choice? I just went, well, this is what we're doing now. This is what we're doing, and I'm going with it. And I just had to work my ass off, which was so nice, because for the first time in my life, probably, I felt myself develop skills. It was really empowering for me to go, because maybe you've been a dancer for your whole life, maybe. So if you're not a physical person, or you're not necessarily good at making small little wins, having something like, well, this can be the case with lots of circus props, but just seeing yourself progressing in something and finding these little wins and getting in touch with the physicality of your body for the first time as an early 20-year-old, which is kind of late, that was really empowering for me. And so that was incredibly motivating. So I kind of got addicted to that. Oh, wow, hang on. I can do the fucking splits now. I can do the splits, shit, like all of that was really, that was a really incredible experience for me. And it just made me go, I want more, I want more, I want more, I want more.
That's incredible. I love the story. And it's just not only a story about finding a passion, but also a story of like, sometimes when you go for things, it just unlocks a completely new life chapter or life direction. Yeah. So big up yourself for taking that leap of faith. And there was a period where you said like you worked for the circus for no money, basically, for 6 months, but you stayed in India after that. How was the transition to go to like a freelancer work in India?
So yeah, actually, so it was pretty okay. So the circus was actually really, I didn't stay with I was meant to be there for 6 months. I didn't stay with him for 6 months because from an ethical standpoint, a traditional Indian circus is really hardcore, as in like, I'm pretty sure there was human trafficking happening like inside the circus. It was really poor. It was hardcore. We had animals. No, we didn't have like lions and tigers and stuff, but we had like elephants and dogs and birds. And oh man, it was rough. I have nothing against traditional circuses. I have nothing against the use of animals in performances either. I don't, especially because when there's a beautiful connection between an animal trainer and an animal, I think that's a relationship that can be really beautiful. In my circus in particular, this wasn't the case. And so I had ethical issues with the way that people were being treated. And that's also it can be a cultural thing in India, the treatment of people depending on what class they are at. Like that was all really it was all new for me, and a lot of it was really difficult to experience. So I did get out of my contract earlier, and then I did become freelance. So what I did, it's actually surprisingly easy, because as a white girl in India with skills, there are a lot of Indian weddings and there are a lot of festivities, and at the end of the day, I still didn't want that much money, so I was able to, I lived by the beach, ended up finding a little place by the beach, and I found some friends that I like to hang out with. And then I just got these little corporate gigs, these little corporate like weddings and shopping malls and festivities. And I was able to make a really nice life for myself and actually save money for the first time, because living in India doesn't cost that much money.
Wow. And then at some point you decided like, okay, India chapter is enough. Let's see what the rest of the world brings.
That's exactly right. So I moved back to the UK. I moved to London. I think initially I moved back to Brighton at first, and then I was like, oh, there's not really, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm going to move to London. I'm going to start busking. So I had a friend who showed me a spot in London where he would busk. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to give this a go because I'm going to need to make money. I'm very motivated by making money. Like I get a lot of validation, just like being paid for my work, which sounds really shallow, but actually if you've sort of very much grown up without money and not having any, then it feels really good to be able to get money for the thing that it is that you really love. So that's been a big motivator for me. And so for me, going like, oh, I can go busking and I can just make some cash and just see what happens. And that's what I did. Then I got very addicted to that, and I found a place to live in London, and I was just busking my ass off on the south bank of the river, like 3-4 days a week. Get there at 7 a.m. Get your right spot to busk all day. Go home when it gets dark, and again, like make some cash, you know. And I really I got a lot better at what I do that summer as well, because I repeated my work over and over again, but I also developed a kind of showmanship that I didn't have before. So kind of got better at making an emotional connection with people, getting closer to them, and then doing everything on a really fast turnover because there are always people going past, you know. So it was a really different experience for me, and I loved it. And then I just ended up saving a bunch of money, and then with that money I moved myself to Rio de Janeiro, where I went to a circus school for the first time.
Wow. First of all, what is the hardest thing about doing street shows in your opinion?
Let's see. The hardest thing about doing street shows is I think you have to really overcome that you really have to overcome the fear of looking like an idiot, if that makes sense. You know, I think you have that in performing anyway, where it takes a lot of guts to step on stage, But on the street, it takes a lot of guts to step on stage. And then people might be watching you. And then if they're not engaged for a second, they're going to leave. And that's really hard, man. The beginning of that is really, really hard. So you really have to go there with no, you cannot have any smidgen of ego because you're already shattered. Do you know what I mean? I go out there and I'm like, nothing can break me. I'm already broken. What you say, what you do, you leaving, it cannot hurt me. It means nothing to me. That for me is the one thing that I have to have, man. The one thing that I have to have, because I have done shows and I would finish my routine and I'd hold up my hat and everybody would be like, yeah, whatever. And I'm leaving, you know, people are just gone. And that is really hard, man. In the beginning, that's really hard. So for me, that's the most challenging thing. It's just I personally cannot hold anything where I can possibly be publicly humiliated, because I'm incapable to be humiliated, because all of that, I've already, I have no grain in my body left that can absorb that kind of emotion. It's already gone, you know? And I think that's a difficult thing.
Yeah, it is, because as a performer, you are a perfectionist in some way, because you want it to look good. You want to nail all the tricks. You want to make people be captivating. So it must be super hard when you see those fails coming, because at some point there must be things happening.
You see them coming, yeah.
Yeah. And you just gotta have to deal with it right on spot, and then do it again and again and again.
Yeah, and again. That's the thing. It's got to go again and again. But again, I love that feeling. I love noticing that kind of growth in yourself. I'm like, oh, this used to be really hard for me, and now I don't even think about it. Yeah. And that's not even skill wise. That is I used to be really difficult for me to just step out onto the street, put on a microphone and start talking. And now I'm like, I don't even think twice about it. It means nothing to me. I don't
Yeah.
care. Like, you know, and I love noticing, because quite often that kind of stuff happens and you don't notice that, you know, but then if you take a little second and look back and you're like, oh shit, I've come really far. And I love that.
So then you moved to Brazil, and how different was the circus scene over there compared to what you had experienced before?
I was completely different. It was so nice as well. South America has a big circus scene anyway. There's a lot of clowning, a lot of juggling, and there's a big, very publicly or government funded circus training school in Rio de Janeiro, where people from all of South America, they go there and they are able to get like scholarships to work in that school. So it's not just Brazilians, it's Argentinians, it's Chileans, it's Colombians. They can all work there. And it was probably the first time that I'm actually in a professional environment, where except for the circus in India, which can maybe be, let me call it, it's professional. It's just professional in how do I say this without sounding like an asshole? It's just a step up. It was just a step up, you know, it's just a step up. Yes. And so, it was so different. And it was the first time that I also started to train other things. So I had like a deal with them that I would basically coach a hula hoop class. So twice a week, I would teach people their hula hoop. And that wasn't a discipline back then in South America. Now it is. Everybody does hula hoops, which is excellent. But when I got there, it wasn't. Nobody was doing it. So it was something that I could give. I could teach people how to make hula hoops. And I would teach the girls how to hoop, and the boys as well, not just the girls. And so that was fun. And in return, I was getting handstand classes, conditioning classes, aerial hoop classes, and just ground acrobatics, because I couldn't do any of those things, right? I'm still without my physical background. So I can't do a cartwheel, I can't do a handstand, I can't do a walkover. So those are all things that I'm learning. And so that's what I got to do there, which was really great for me.
Wow. And then you ended up in Australia. I don't know if that's a lot of years later or if that's right away after, but that's another continent once again.
Yes. So after I left Brazil, I did go back to the United Kingdom because I wanted to continue busking. Also, I then ended up getting a place in a Western circus school. I went to the National Centre for Circus Arts in London. So the skill, kind of like the basics that I learned in Brazil, set me up for being able to like pass the audition to do the school in London. And it's around that time that I met my partner as well. And so he's a street performer as well. So we both busked in London. He moved to work with Cirque du Soleil. So he left, did Cirque du Soleil. I went to school in London. And then after I finished my degree in London, kind of then moved to Australia.
Wow. That's such a huge jump. And now you are, let's say you went from street shows to like super glamorous, like cabarets and like these like amazing stages around the world. I mean, it's one thing to learn a new art form, like you had that down, but it's another thing to learn the other part of being an artist. Like you have to learn to market yourself, to network, to how to make a booking, spreadsheets, contracts, like all the practical things that makes you like this little bit more elevated artist that can ask for more and so on. Did you have like any mentors, or like did you just learn by doing, or how did you kind of move around in that realm?
I think I don't really have any mentors in that. Like I think we probably got like one or two business classes at Circus School in London, where somebody like shows you how to do a tax return, which is actually very useful to learn because I had no idea how to do a tax return. But no, I very much just learned that on the go. And I have always been a person that's very go-gettery as well, you know, so I would just reach out to all agencies in London, like, hi, I live in London, I do a hula hoop act, here are these photos. Oh, I need better photos. Okay, I'm going to talk to this photographer that I know. He's going to take some good photos. Okay, I've got better photos now. Cool. I've got to make a website. I know if this is before Squarespace and Wix, you know, like, oh, I've got a friend who can make websites. How much is it? Okay, cool. I'm just going to go do some busking so I can make some money so you can make me a website. And so I have always been very much a person who does do that. Like, I work out what's needed and then I get it. And if I can't afford what I really need, then I'll get something temporary. And then when I can afford more, then I will get something better. So I have always really been quite proactive about investing in my business in that way. And also when you do it for long enough, like these things do become automatic. I think it can seem really overwhelming at first. Like, oh, I need a website and I need this and I need to do like, I need to have all of my website and paperwork and it all needs to look beautiful and streamlined and everything. And especially now, I think that's a little bit easier as well. There's so many really easy ways on the internet of how you can kind of like brand yourself quite quickly. Yeah, you just get used to it. And, you know, YouTube has great tutorials as well. Like I essentially learned hula hooping off YouTube, you know, with my laptop. So this is kind of how I approach everything else. Like, is there something on YouTube that can tell me how to do this? Oh yeah, there is. Great.
Yeah. So since you have done so many different types of shows, you have done like the more business class things, you have done more the evening entertainment, you have obviously done street shows and all of those things. What are your like current favorite things to do show wise?
Oh, it's hard. Okay, there's three kinds of shows that I love the most. I'll tell you the three of them and then I'll pick afterwards, right? So one of my favorite kind of shows to do is I love doing, like, sometimes I get to do like super big scale music festivals where they kind of treat you like a musician and you can like go into a really big stage and perform for like 20,000 people while they're just setting up for the other band kind of thing. And it's like this like tiny interim performance, you know. I love doing that kind of stuff because you get flown all over the world and stay in very fancy hotels and like share rides with like bands and stuff like that. I love that because I kind of feel like I'm a musician, which is great, which I'm not. And then there is the kind of variety shows that I'm doing right now. So the season that I just finished in London right now was a show called Bernie Dieter's Berlin Underground, which is kind of like a dark punky cabaret show with a band, live music, and a few variety acts in a Spiegel tent, and everything's really beautiful. Like the tent is 100 years old. There's like beautiful lights everywhere, and I can be exactly who I want to be. So like, as in I can have an attitude in my act. I can throw hoops around the audience. I can be exactly who I want to be on stage. There's no need for me to be pretty and nice and sparkly. And so those kinds of things are really important for me now, especially now I'm a little bit of an older performer. I've done my half of my career where I've just been like, I'm a pretty hula hoop girl. I have blonde hair and I smile and I wear these gold sparkles. Aren't I nice? I'm so nice. I'm so pretty. So I love doing that show that I did in London where I can just be exactly who I want to be. I can swear on stage. I can throw hula hoops at people. And, you know, I love that very much, where I can be unapologetically myself. So that would be an evening variety setting. And then the other thing that I love to do is my street show. Like, my street show evolved from being, you know, like a very short 5-minute routine on the South Bank of London to now, well, obviously I haven't done it for a while now, but you know, if I do my street show at an outdoor theater event, it's a 45-50 minute show where I'm on my microphone and I'm just talking to the audience most of the time. Like, my hula hooping is like 6 minutes of hula hooping and the rest is me just talking shit to my audience and having fun with them. And like I love that as well.
Semi-stand-up comedian.
Kinda, yeah. It actually is kind of like that. It is like, it's little bits of stand-up material with some like circus thrown into them. I do some like contortion-y bits and stuff like that and some hula hoops, but it is mainly, and like when it's good, as in like when the circumstances are perfect, this is obviously the weather, but also if you have the right audience with you and you know they get you and you have it can be, Actually, that's probably my favorite. That's probably my favorite, because when it's bad, it's really bad. But when it's good, it's really good. So that would be my favorite.
Talking about favorite audience, like, do you have, and you gotta have to be honest now, do you have like a favorite country that you perform in where like you know that the audience have been great, as you say, like the feeling, you're very appreciated? And do you have like a country that you maybe not having to go back to if you don't have to? Do you have any tops and lows?
Yes. Okay. So my favorite country in the world to perform in is Canada. And the reason for that is Canada has a huge amount of large outdoor summer street theater events. Some of them go as back as far as like 25, 30 years and quite often they're small towns, and it's a small town, it's a summer festival. Everybody knows that on this particular weekend in July, the buskers come. And then it's like always a group of us buskers. Sometimes we're friends. We only see each other on the road, and like, oh, we're all going to do Sault Ste. Marie. Can't wait to see you there. And it's a tiny town in Canada with population of who knows what. And everybody knows you're coming. Everybody is like already seen the lineup. They're there. Your show's on. They're sitting in the front row. Maybe if it's your third time there, they would have a picture of you from when you were there like 10 years ago. And then you have to take a picture with their daughter who saw you 10 years ago. And now she's 10 years old. Oh my God, I love these festivals. They're small, they're intimate. People are, and maybe it's also because it's Canada and it's just so cold for all of the year. And then when it's summer, they like go ape shit for it. But these festivals just mean the world to me. I absolutely love them.
Wow.
So yes, that's one of my favorite places to perform. And then probably my least favorite places to perform, I don't think it's necessarily a country. It's just sometimes I get asked to perform in shopping malls, which I kind of love doing. It just depends where you are culturally. If people only want to hold their smartphone, because it's a bit of a thing, especially in street shows, you do kind of really need to have people engage. So if you're doing a show and people just want to film you, then they don't clap because they've got their phone in their hands. Do you know what I mean? And that's like a real killer for any, like, you're like, oh, you can't applaud for me because you're filming me, but you probably never watch that footage back though. So maybe you could just put your phone away though, Yeah. And so that for me is my least favorite. And it's like not a specific place. It kind of just depends. Yeah.
Wow. With this TikTok era, it's like getting more and more, common as well, that it's more important to be able to put it on your story than to actually see what you're looking at. So for sure. Well, that's a good answer actually. Like as a dancer, I would say that would definitely kill my vibe if people are just filming and not screaming. At least scream then, you know what I mean?
Yeah, at least scream. But they might not, because they know that when they scream and they're filming, that's all you hear on the microphone of the phone, right? So yeah, it's something just breaks my heart, because it's not live entertainment, like if you're watching it through your phone, it's not live entertainment. So yeah,
for sure. All right, so I mean, this have been like obviously a long journey. There is always some downfalls, and I always think that it's interesting to hear about sometimes when it doesn't go as you think it will, and then you come out wiser on the other side. What has been one of your hardest moments as a performer, and how did you overcome that?
Definitely the hardest moment of me as a performer would be when I had an accident on stage. And unfortunately, I was working with someone, and I have to be very careful of my words here. Let's say that the conditions between the cast and the company were less than ideal. And unfortunately, I had an accident on stage. I broke my ACL, so I broke my knee, which means that your leg stops working basically. And this was right at the end of a 3-month contract. It was the last day of the contract, horrendous. And then the week after, I was about to go on a world tour. So I was meant to go on a world tour. I was going to be away from home for like at least 9-10 months. I had more than 25 countries on my calendar. I had published the tour schedule. I was like, it's going to be my best year. 2018 is going to be amazing. And then that happened like a week before I left, you know. And unfortunately, the year before that, I had actually had 2 hip surgeries. So I had broken a couple of ligaments in my hips just from wear and tear. So I had those fixed up because I knew, like, I took a sabbatical to get my hips repaired, which was, I'm so happy I did that. It was hard work, but I did that. So I kind of had taken a year off to make sure I could do that. And then my first contract back, on the last day, I break my knee, and kind of as I completely break down because I know that I'm going to be out for another year. And I know that I have to send out, like, I don't even think about my body at this point. I'm like, oh my God, I have to cancel 100 flights. I have to write to all these people saying that I can't come. I'm going to disappoint so many people. These are all the first things that happen in your head, right? Oh my God, I'm going to disappoint so many people. Oh my God, people are going to be so angry with me. And then, of course, I have a broken knee. And so I have to get surgery. They have to fix my knee back together. And then I have to spend basically another year rehabilitating, which is really hard work. Like, rehabilitating a body part is really hard. But it's the gym 7 days a week, you know. So that was incredibly low moment because the entire thing was out of my control. There's nothing that I could have done except for possibly flagging around me saying, I'm working in an unsafe circumstance. The circumstances that we are working in as a group are not safe. We're setting ourselves up for an accident to happen. But quite often, as you would know as a dancer as well, if you're working in a team, you can to, like, you know, be nice and be employable and be not, as a woman as well, like, to not make too much trouble, not take up enough space, not make a fuss because, oh, what will people think of you? And I learned that if I would have just stood my ground and gone, no, hang on, no, we're not safe. This is not safe. You're not listening. Sorry, we can't go on. This is not safe. If I would have done that, I would not have gotten into the situation that I did. So not only was I, of course, physically damaged, I was emotionally very damaged. And it did teach me so much that I have to absolutely stand up for not only for safety, like not only for like physical safety, also for mental safety. Like, I'm never going to let that happen again to myself. And I'm also never going to let that happen if I see it in someone else. So after that, I've been quite guilty if I'm working in companies to go, no, everybody stop. No, are we all okay with this? Has everybody got consent to work on this particular thing? Because unfortunately, as you know, as a group of friends, if you're training, those things, they can be talked about. But when you're under the pressure of being on stage, if there's loads of money involved, if you're part of a company, like, safety things, they do fly under the radar. And so it's our responsibility to look after ourselves and each other.
Yeah, wow, that is so true. And, like, as I said, so beautiful to see what it taught you, and maybe how many not only injuries you have saved yourself from coming out on the other side, but also other people, being that, like, hopefully, whistleblower, you know. So wow, thank you so much for sharing that. I really, really appreciate it. And I definitely think, as you say, also it combines with being a female artist as well. And as you say, you're kind of also maybe not supposed to be more than that pretty show act, but as you getting older, and you also want to set an example for newcomers, and you kind of want to,
this is very important.
For sure.
This is very important. And that would be an advice that I would really give to anyone. If you're working in a professional setting with people that you know are of different statuses, you've got a producer, you've got a director, you've got a bunch of dancers, you've got some circus performers, and everybody's working on their different wavelengths. If doesn't matter where you are on that spectrum.
Yeah.
If you see something and it doesn't feel right, you talk about it. If you're not going to bring it up with a producer, you're going to bring it up with a colleague, and you're going to say, hey, are we going to do something about this? And this could be something really small. This could be something like, I don't think the shoes that we're being told to wear are actually safe. Can we get a safety check on our shoes? Can we talk about that? Maybe we all need different shoes, up to the point of, like, No, actually, I believe there's some sexual assault happening in this company, and I want to talk about that. I want to fix that. These are, because those are two completely different things. But actually, if we as artists get used to just bringing up things that we feel, I'm not sure how I feel about that. If you've got a voice in your head saying, oh, maybe that's wrong, it probably is. And if it's not wrong, then at least it's worth talking about.
Yeah.
So you can clear it up.
Yeah, for sure. That's I completely agree. And I think that there's a lot of work that's going to have to change, like a lot of work that needs to be done in the culture art scene, for sure.
Yeah.
So because you know that with more recognition, there's also more opportunities, but also hopefully you can choose more what kind of performances you want to do and what kind of companies you kind of want to enroll with. What is important for you as the hula hoop artist that you are when you get a request to come and perform? What are some of the key things that you are like valuing more now than maybe before when you get a new gig?
Okay, so a couple of things. Actually, two things. It's either going to be one or the other. Either I need to be paid. So if I'm going to, like, as in the amount of money that I know I'm worth, which as you get older, you get better at asking for, you know? So if I'm going to be paid, it doesn't matter if it's a one-off gig or one night, or if it's like a long contract. If the event pays me the money that I want, then I will do, for example, I will be a pretty hula hoop girl that smiles and wears sparkles and does all of their tricks really perfectly and takes beautiful pictures for the brochure. If I get paid the money where I feel like I'm okay doing that for. That makes sense? And then on the other side is oh, I love doing my street show for this huge amount of people, and it's going to be this auditorium in South Africa, and I've never been there before, and I'm going to be there with great friends, and this is going to be a real adventure. Maybe the money's not going to be so good, but that sounds like a really fun adventure. I'm going to do that. That's another thing. And then the other thing is, if I get to be the character that I absolutely want to play. So, for example, as I was just saying, the show that I just did in London, what I want to do is I want to wear really big black eyeliner, and I want to throw hula hoops at my audience members, and I want to flip them off, and I want it to be funny. And I want to do my best skills, and I want to do it to live music. And I know that when I'm doing that and working with great people, that as a performer, I feel like I'm putting out the work that I love the most. So does that make sense? So it's like either, I guess if you would relate it to like film or TV, it's like, oh, this is a role that speaks really close to my heart, so I want to do it, but it's a small and independent film, versus this is a Hollywood flick where I'm going to be a blonde lady who is waiting for her husband to return from the war, but it's very, very well funded, and I will have to be a damsel, but I get a lot of money and it's fine. Do you know what I mean? So those are the assessments that I make. Hey, is it going to be a fantastic adventure? Am I going to do something that I would normally never get to do? Because you get those opportunities in show business, and there's nothing wrong with taking those. Or can I be unapologetically myself, or familiarize myself with a role that makes me feel like I'm putting something out there in the world that makes me really happy? Or am I going to be like a pretty woman, but they're going to pay me a lot of money, so I feel fine?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that is like, it's either creatively challenged or, creatively free. It's the Gatsby payment, the glitter and the fringe, or it is that adventure. And like, when you say that you're going to meet up friends, I get like so interested in knowing, like, is it like a very small community, or like, and when you get these bookings, is it because there is like an agency specializing in what you do that are giving you these works? Or is it like your friends are going to this gig, they're going to talk about you as well, and that's how you get connected?
Yeah, it is usually all friends, if I'm honest with you. There are are some agencies, like you might get some like very corporate bookings through agencies, but even then still the agencies need to know what you do, and they also want to know if you're interested, if you're like a good person to work with, right? So they will probably ask your friends like, oh, is she cool to work with, or is she got to be a total diva, because we don't have time for that. So most of it, again, this is why your career does get easier when you get older, because you just know everyone. And inside circus, it's 2 degrees of separation. It's everybody knows someone that you know, everybody. So if you haven't met them, you haven't met them yet. Also, I think circus is quite interesting because it's still like, let's say the beginnings of YouTube, like 2008 or something like that. So the people who were really big, let's say Cirque du Soleil, for example, or the circus that we saw on YouTube as kids. Yeah, wow, I'm that old already. Like it's very likely that you might actually end up working with those people, right? So if you're an actor, it's not necessarily very likely that you're going to be doing a film with Leo DiCaprio. Maybe you will, but maybe not, right? But in circus, actually, it's quite likely that if you're good and you've had a career for a while and you've made a name for yourself, that you end up in a show with someone who you grew up watching in Cirque du Soleil, you know, because that's how small that industry, like, you know, like I think I know most hula hoopers that I used to look up to when I was younger. Like I've met them all, I've hooped with them all, you know, like that's kind of what happens. So it's all what's the word? Word of mouth. It's all word of mouth.
Yeah. Because it's interesting when you mention YouTube, because I did find some like 13-year-old clips of you doing street shows on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just like as a total hippie being on YouTube, like, oh, great, you know. But then again, you know, that's like that clip of me as a hippie on YouTube as a child, basically, that got me flown all around the world doing gigs, you know, just that tiny little clip, like that still did so much for me. So yeah, I would say like, oh, I don't know, you can't really control what's on the internet, can you? But yeah, if you consistently push out work that you're really proud of, then only work that you're proud of is going to end up on the internet.
Yeah, no, but that's amazing. So I see that you have put out quite a lot of tutorials, because as you say, there wasn't a lot when you started. You have been contributing to that free knowledge on the internet in order to make more people fall in love with what you do. What are some of your like hopes and visions when it comes to the hula hoop scene moving forward?
Let's see, to hula hoop scene. Well, my first one is I just can't wait until we can all get together again in a room and hoop together, because that in hula hooping itself, because hula hooping is also, next to being a circus discipline, it's also, there's a huge community of hula hoopers that are not necessarily circus performers, they just love to hoop. And this is this is called the flow arts community. Sometimes they use other props as well. And it's like a little bit different because these people are not necessarily professionals, nor do they want to be professionals. They just freaking love to hoop. And I love hanging out with people who are like this, because sometimes they take that professionalism off of it and they just play a lot. And this is where a lot of new movement comes from. This is how this discipline has evolved, right? So it's so important. So there are lots of events around the world. Normally we have hoop retreats or hoop days where people, like teachers from all over the world, get together, and you have people who really have different styles. So someone from LA or New York would have a really different hooping style to someone from Australia would have a really different hooping style to someone from London or from Paris, you know, because each of these pockets have people who get together and hoop there, right? So when we have our worldwide events, we get together and then we get to mix these styles. And often it's really emotional because people get to meet their teachers for the first time. So let's say I've been doing loads of videos learning of Anne McKenna, and then I get to meet her for the first time, you know, like, so that's really a beautiful, like, it's really amazing. And so I really miss that. And I know that all hoopers really miss that. And so that's one thing that I can't wait to do again. And then for the rest, for the art form itself, I think all I want is for it to keep progressing as it has been, because it really has progressed from, if you imagine, I know there's a podcast and I'm trying to use my hands for a visual medium. If you imagine that hooping like in circus has been the same for, I don't actually know how many years, but let's say it's been the same for 50 years, very much the same. And then when YouTube started and the internet started and people started hooping as a flow art skill around the world, then all of a sudden it just went up by 7,000%, you know, and it has been going in that upward trajectory. And this is how the skill, it would be the same with dance, you know, all of a sudden, like we, as humans, we evolve, like we fine tune our skills. And when we can see what people all over the world are doing, we get to draw inspiration of that. And we also get to get better at it, right? So if we, I have, my wish is for the upward trajectory to continue to grow. I'm so excited for what I can see. Hopefully it'll be the younger generation, because I am going to probably not be as active hooping anymore in 20 years. I would love to see what people are doing with it in 20 years. I would love to see it.
Yeah. So talking about that and your role, I mean, you obviously are in the middle of going to performing again now. Is there something that you have not yet achieved in your career that you really would love to do, like a certain type of gig, a certain type of project or travel, or something that you just haven't done yet that you look forward to? And when you can't do what you have been doing so far, is there another dream as well in your mind that you want to take off with?
You know, I think as far as hula hooping goes, I do think I have ticked all my goal boxes. There really isn't anything that I feel like I really need to do with that still, which is, I know it's a bold statement, but I do kind of feel that way. If I have any wish, I would just really love for the world to open back up so I could have these adventure gigs that I was telling you about. That's the one thing that I miss the most. I really miss getting an email last minute. Could you jump on a plane? Or you need to hoop on the Falkland Islands. Actually, that's never happened. But, you know, like those things happen, and like I really miss those. And I kind of never want those to stop. So that would be it. And for the rest, during the pandemic, I did realize, like, oh shit, I kind of need more. I need something else to do in my life, because live entertainment is live entertainment is not going to be anymore what it was. And even if the pandemic ends today, I would still be very interested to see how everything has changed on a live theater scale. So I've actually been acting. So I went to an acting school for 6 months during the pandemic. And I've been focusing a lot on doing like film and TV kind of stuff. And so that's what I would love to do more. It's not only doing more film and TV based things, screen based things, later based things. So not live, not right now, maybe later. And yeah, I mean, I would love to, I would love to work more in that. Be great if I could bring hula hoops into that, or physicality, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's focusing on entertainment that is not necessarily right now and not necessarily in the same room, but still entertainment.
Have you also directed your own show, or like been a director, not a performer yourself, or is that something that you would like to try as well?
I've never been a director of a show ever before. It's not. I'm not sure if I would actually be really good at that either, because I'm very, I feel really strong about my own decisions, but I feel I get quite intimidating telling other people what to do, especially creatively. Physically, not so much. I can go like, that looks a bit shit, let's fix that, you know, whereas on a creative level, I would feel quite intimidated to go, yes, I like that idea that you have there, but it's not good enough, you know, like, so I would feel intimidated doing that. What I have done is I've devised shows with my team. So I work in a company called Circus, and we, the last show that we did before the pandemic, which is like it literally closed, and that was March 2020. So we're a cast of 6, and we have a really great circus show that we devise and put together ourselves. And we have a director, but we're very much a team effort where we sit in a room and we just make jokes and we make shit and then we put it on stage. And that's like, I love it. Like, I love it so much. And that's what I'm going to do again in January. So I really look forward to that, working in a close group where you feel really, really safe.
For sure. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you once again for sharing all of this. In the end of my interviews, I have something called fill in the gaps. It's like 3 quick questions and you answer with a 1 word or maximum an end of a sentence, the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
Yep. So when I'm on stage, I always want my audience to feel
happy.
When I'm teaching hula hoop students, I always try to bring
empowerment.
And the moment I feel completely unfuckable with is
when I'm standing on the street and I know I'm winning.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Lisa Lottie, for all your wisdom. Thanks for coming to this podcast. Where can people find you? Is there anyone you want to shout out? The mic is yours.
You can find me on Instagram. It's kind of the only social media platform that I use. It's Lisa_Lottie. And you can find me, hopefully, depending wherever you are in the world. If you're in Singapore, I'm here. I'm going to be here until November, performing in Marina Bay Sands with Le Clique. And if you've never hula hooped before, but you'd like to try it, please try it. Get on the YouTube. There are so many incredible teachers teaching hoops on YouTube. It doesn't matter what kind of background you have, if you're a dancer or if you've never moved your body before in your life. I really encourage it. Doesn't matter how old or what gender you are, give it a try.
Woo! Thank you. And good luck with all your shows the rest of the year. I loved having you on this podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Don't forget to click subscribe, comment below, and give us a rating or review. We have a Facebook page, YouTube page, and we are on Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and all the other podcast platforms. We also have an Instagram, so don't forget to tag us in your favorite episode and share it with the world, because we read all of it.